Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Goud crowd. I'm your host, Goud. I actually can't even hear the introduction, but I guess it's new, so I'll have to try to listen to that later. Okay, today is the last day of Pride Month. So I guess I'm sure you are all very sad to see this glorious month come to an end. And then we'll go into the real celebration that should happen, which is Independence Day and the independence of our country. So I think that's pretty cool. But what I wanted to start talking about today is how the gay rights movement got radicalized. Andrew Sullivan actually did a fantastic op-ed where he walked through this. And so I'm going to actually share it with you and we could talk through it because I think this is relevant and it'll help you understand why you should not be accepting of Equality Utah and the stuff that they push in our state. They don't represent gays. They don't represent normal families. They actually represent a radical movement that really those of us who are gays and lesbians and even just normal everyday people, we need to push them out and marginalize them and get them out of the conversation. Because what they represent is a radical fringe that's trying to target your children. So here, I'll share my screen with you. Because I think some of you are probably listening, others of you might be watching. And so if you're watching, you can read along. If you are listening, if I could find it, let's do this shoot, of course. Here we go. Sure. Okay, here we go. So he starts by saying 10 years ago Thursday, so this was last week, I think, the movement for gay and lesbian equality scored a victory that only a decade before had seemed unimaginable. We won equal rights to civil marriage in every state in the country. Now, before I go on, I'll just say this. The Obergefell decision is, if you care about how the court reasons its decisions, it's a horrible decision. It is a bad decision. I read it at the time, and I remember thinking like, oh my God, like, what is this? It's like they reached into the Constitution, into the penumbras between the various rights in the Bill of Rights, and they found this random new right that clearly does not exist. Clearly the people, the framers of the Constitution, when they wrote it, they did not intend that any of that language would cover gay marriage. And so really that decision is an abomination. If you care about reasoning, if you're just outcome based, I guess you can celebrate it as a great decision. But I would just say, I actually care about the reasoning of the court. And I do think that they should make it clear that decision really is just a one-off and it's not meant to be precedential for other issues. And it's short. And by the way, it also shortcutted a democratic process that was already happening, where we were losing some battles, we were winning some battles, and that's how it's supposed to happen. It should be going through the democratic process, and sometimes the Supreme Court will step in and they'll short circuit that. Now, the second one, he says, in 2020 came another stunning win. In a majority opinion written by one of President Trump's nominees, Justice Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court found that gay men, lesbians, and transgender men and women are covered under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and protected from employer discrimination. Now, just a little bit of background here. I think this decision, if I remember correctly, was a 6-3 decision, and John Roberts and Neil Gorsuch were in the majority. And I think the reason Roberts was in the majority is that it looked like it was going to be, here's the thing. It looked like it was going to be a win, meaning that the majority was going to vote to interpret Title VII to include gays, lesbians, and transgenders. And so John Roberts, my view is that he probably switched to the majority so that he could assign the opinion to Gorsuch, because Gorsuch was probably already going to vote with the majority. And so if Roberts was not in the majority, he would not have been able to assign the opinion like that. And we would have gotten opinion from one of the left-wing justices, which would have made this much worse. I'm trying to think now, maybe it had to be a 6-3. It doesn't, so maybe it was were there 4? Whatever. I think that's why Roberts was in the majority on this one. Now, I will say this is a statute. I do think it needs to be amended. The inclusion of transgenders and giving them, making it so employers cannot discriminate against them. The problem is that a lot of them like to go and work in schools as teachers for your children, and I don't think that's appropriate. And I believe that we should be able to discriminate against them, because if they become your child's teacher, so if a man pretending to be a woman is your child's teacher, he's going to tell them to call him Miss whatever, and now they're having to participate in his delusion. And I just don't think that's appropriate. So I think this law actually needs to be amended, but this is where we are, right? So then he talks about how in 2023, the Human Rights Campaign, the largest gay, lesbian, and transgender civil rights group in the country, declared a state of emergency for gay men, lesbians, and transgender people, the first time in the organization's history. So this is after we have gay marriage, and then you have this Title VII decision bringing employment protections to gays, employment protections under federal law for gays, lesbians, and transgenders. Now, I'll just add, Utah already had it in state law, so we didn't need the federal decision, but we already had this. And he says, it had not declared a state of emergency when gay men were jailed for having sex in private, when the AIDS epidemic killed hundreds of thousands of gay men, or when we faced a possible constitutional amendment banning marriage equality in 2004. In fact, we found out this emergency was almost entirely in response to new state bills proposing restrictions on medical treatment for minors with gender dysphoria, bathroom and locker room bans, and transgender issues in school curricula and sports, showing you again how radical this group had become. Charitable funding for such groups totaled $387 million in 2012, according to the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy's Equitable Giving Lab. In 2021, it was $823 million. So these LGBTQ organizations, I think what actually happened is that they switched after the gay marriage win. They needed a new issue to be able to fundraise, and they have found that the trans issue is a huge fundraiser. Locally, in fact, you can see this with Equality Utah as well. In 2012, Equality Utah raised $100,520, according to one of their Form 990s that I was able to find from that year. In 2023, they were raising $406,037. So you can see it's a 4 times increase in their in the donations that they're receiving. They're 501c4, so it's technically not deductible, but the amount of money that they're getting is massively increasing, even though from just a general perspective, we have all the rights we need. If you're an adult gay man or gay woman, you're good. You don't really need anything else. The most that we need is some ability to be able to have freedom of thought within our movement, because right now we don't have that. Now, what they did is instead of he says it here. So he said it was instead about a law, so after, like I just said, after they won gay marriage, they switched to a new and radical gender revolution, focused on ending what activists saw as the oppression of the sex binary, which some critical gender and queer theorists associated with white supremacy. They aim to dissolve natural distinctions between men and women in society, to replace biological sex with gender identity in the law and culture, and to redefine homosexuality in the process, not as a neutral fact of the human condition, but as a liberating ideological queerness, which is then meant to subvert the queer language, culture, and society in myriad different ways. The word gay and lesbian all but disappeared. And this is true. If you listen to people talk today, they talk about queers. So they'll refer to someone like me as a queer. And I'm like, I don't why I'm not queer. I don't even know what that means. I'm gay. That's like, I'm just a gay man, like whatever. But I'm definitely not queer. So LGBT, which is what it used to be called, became LGBTQ, then LGBTQ plus, and more letters and characters kept being added. LGBTQIA plus, or 2S LGBTQIA plus, to include intersex, asexual people, and two-spirit indigenous people. Let me just add, if you are asexual, you actually have a medical problem, and you should get that checked out. That is not normal. I feel bad for you. Like, go to a doctor. That's not an identity that actually indicates you have some sort of issue that you need to get resolved. Not normal. The plus sign referred to a seemingly infinite number of new niche identities, and by some counts, more than 70 new genders. The point was, this is all one revolutionary intersectional community of gender diverse people, and intertwined with other left causes, from Black Lives Matters to Queers for Palestine. And this is what's happened. It isolates anyone who is gay and doesn't buy into all of this garbage that they push, whether it is they tell you that you have to support transing children, which I think is abhorrent and absolutely disgusting. And by the way, for those of you who are listening, Troy Williams and Equality Utah, they fully support that. They want to be out there transing your children. That's one of their explicit goals as an organization. And so, but if you're a normal gay guy, that's actually really offensive, because we'll get to this, but he's going to talk about how it harkens back to when you're a child and things that happen, and realizing and thinking about how those things would have been different had you been a kid today. And I see that, with children I know who tend to be a little bit more, maybe not like, traditionally masculine, and those same things happen to them. So part of what happened is they reinvented, they changed the pride flag. So I guess it was invented back in 1978 by Harvey Milk, and then it was replaced over the last few years by a new progress flag that represented intersectional oppression. So black and brown stripes were added to the rainbow for black and brown people, and pink, light blue, and white for trans people. That flag now demarcates a place not simply friendly to all types of people, as the old rainbow flag did, but a place where anyone who does not subscribe to intersectional left ideology is unwelcome. And this is a big difference. I'll tell you, I used to actually fly the old regular pride flag on my home. This is years ago. I won't fly any of it anymore, because it clearly does not represent anything that I stand for or that I can even agree with. It's just super offensive. And because of this, because I've turned it into it's a placeholder. Like, if you fly that flag, you're now supporting all of these weird ideologies that have nothing to do with just saying, I'm gay. Now he talks about the use of the word queer, and how it's a word that can easily trigger gay men over 40 who remember it as the last slur they once heard before being bashed in the head. And if you think about this, we used to play a game called Smear the Queer. I'm sure people remember that if you're older. And this is like one of those issues that it can bring up where you're like, I don't understand why we're using this term. But one of the striking aspects of the younger queer generation is this disdain for those who came before them. And I think you see that a lot, which is unfortunate, because there's a lot to be learned, I think, from people that were where you were 20 or 30 years ago. So he then says, my sexual orientation is based on a biological distinction between men and women. I'm attracted to the former, so men, and not to the latter. And now I'm supposed to believe the difference doesn't exist. And this is exactly what I don't understand about it myself. As anyone that listens to this or has met me knows, I am gay. I am attracted to men. But I'm not attracted to women pretending to be men, right? I'm not attracted to masculine women. I'm attracted to men. And I think that's kind of what this is getting at, is how the trans agenda tries to actually break all of that down, because what they tell people like me is, if you don't accept or find attractive this woman pretending to be a man who says she's now a gay man, you are transphobic. And that doesn't make any sense, right? It shows you how nonsensical the entire trans ideology is. Okay. Now he says, the gay rights movement, especially in the marriage years, had long asked for simple liberal equality and mutual respect. Live and let live. Reform, not revolution. No one's straight marriage would change if gay marriage arrived. We pledged. You can bring your children, this is key. You can bring up your children however you like. We will leave you alone. We will not, we will leave you alone. We will leave your children alone. That is the key, is that the gay rights movement was always about letting people raise their children as they saw fit. They understood that, you know, people will have different ways of raising their children, but at the end of the day, the parents are the ones that are supposed to raise their kids, not outside activists and groups. Then he says, but in the wake of victory, LGBTQ plus groups reneged on that pledge. They demanded that the entire society change in a fundamental way so that sex binary no longer counted. Elementary school children were taught that being a boy or a girl might not have anything to do with their bodies and that their parents had merely guessed whether they were a boy or a girl when they were born. In fact, sex was no longer to be recognized at birth. It was now merely assigned, penciled in. We got new terms like chest feeding for breastfeeding and birthing parent for mother. And just to take this to as absurd as it is, not, just keep in mind, Sullivan, the author, isn't actually, I wouldn't consider him conservative, probably more of a moderate guy. And so he'll refer to people by their preferred pronouns, so to speak. So he says, as a key leader of this movement, Chase Strangio is a trans man. So this is someone who was born a woman and is now pretending to be a man. Informed us that a penis is not a male body part. It's just an unusual body part for a woman. I mean, come on. When you hear people talk like that, do you actually think you should take them seriously? Like clowns, total clowns. I can't believe that we've actually allowed this to go as far as it has nationally and in Utah. I mean, Utah is actually shocking when you realize that it's run by the Republican Party and it's run by people who are allegedly conservative. And we had the trans agenda everywhere throughout our government. And when I see this stuff, I can't believe it sometimes. So then he said, we were all suddenly expected to announce our pronouns as if everyone didn't already know them. Then neo-pronouns came up, right? Z, them were added. The movement came out with a mantra. Trans women are women, trans men are men. It was not an argument, not a proposition to be explored or debated. It was a theological command in all caps. Exactly. It's essentially the same as religion. That's what the whole trans movement is basically a religion. Okay. Then he asks, and I think this is a good question. Was there any debate among gays and lesbians about this profound change, a vote taken, or even a poll of gay men and lesbians? None that I can find or recall. And so this is true. I don't think there's ever been a poll about this among gay men and gay women, right? And when it comes to the LGBTQ plus stuff, we're the only ones that are actually, biologically this way. This is what I would say. I know some of you guys disagree with it. I don't really want to get into it, but I think that's what makes us different than the TQ plus, which is all mental health problems being allowed to manifest, and then the people who have those mental health problems not being given the help that they need to be able to overcome them. And so, it should matter what we think, but nobody's ever taken a poll of us to say, hey, do you guys want to go down this path? Do you want to go and target children? Do you want to teach them that that it's not biological to be a boy or a girl and you can change your sex? Because I guarantee you most gays would say no. Okay, so then he talks about how the gay movement used to actually be very open-minded. Like you could discuss different ideologies, different thinking. It had to be about free speech because gays are a minority. And so you have to take advantage of the fact that we have a First Amendment and then everybody has free speech rights. But now it's the opposite. If you say things that they don't agree with, they come back and they actually start attacking you. And that's what happened to me. I mean, like my views as a gay man are very different than I think the majority of gay men in Utah who I don't know. I don't actually know, to be honest with you, if they agree that you should be able to trans children or that it's a real thing that you can change your sex. Because I'll say this in what I just said, that I'm not attracted to men pretending to be women. I'm not other way around. Hold on. I'm not attracted to that. But also not attracted to women who are pretending to be men. So trans men. I do not think that they are men. And I think what you'll find is even the gay guys who say that they should be treated equally will agree with me on that point. Whether they will say it out loud or they will say it through their actions. They will never, meaning that they will never date a trans man, and they will never do anything physical with a trans man because they're not actually attracted to them because they're not men. See, so I think inherently they actually do agree with what someone like me is saying. But because I oppose the trans agenda, that's why Equality Utah came after me at my job, and they worked to get me fired. And so it's because Troy represents this illiberalism that has seeped into the movement. He doesn't like anybody that opposes his agenda. And his agenda is to push the trans agenda as far and wide as he can in Utah and to trans as many of Utah's children as possible. And this is why it always surprises me that there are so many elected Republicans who will go and they will work with him and they will talk to him and they will meet one-on-one with him. I don't understand it. I find it totally bizarre because his goal is to target your children. His organization's goal, Equality Utah, their main goal is to target your children. Everything they do is aimed at that. The policies that they promote and push are aimed at going after your kids. And so if you have a Republican legislator, let's say, what is his name? He's a senator, Brady Brammer. He was in I took this continuing legal education class, and I think I played the video for you guys a few weeks ago. He said in this class that he regularly sits down with Troy Williams because he deals with some sorts of civil rights cases in his legal practice, and that he has a lot of respect for Troy and that he enjoys working with him. And so I find it kind of weird because this guy is after your children. Why would you be meeting with him as a Republican legislator? Why wouldn't your answer be, we have a supermajority in the state. Our voters actually don't like you. They're not interested in what you're promoting. They're fine with employment protections for gays, which we already have in statute. They're fine with gays being a part of our party. They're fine with gays being able to live the lives that they want, obviously within reason. You can't be doing sexually explicit pride parades, can't be doing sexually explicit activity in public areas, things like that. But beyond that, I don't think anybody cares. So, but what nobody wants is for children to be targeted. And so that's why I don't understand Republican legislators don't just tell Troy and Equality Utah to buzz off. Like, we're not interested. If you guys want to be involved in the legislative process and get these special rights, then you should go and win elections, right? Outside of Salt Lake County. In Salt Lake County, they don't have a problem winning them because we are a majority. I mean, I think it's basically controlled by liberal white women, and they vote for this type of stuff. Okay, so he said, like I said, in the gay rights movement, there had always been an unspoken golden rule. Leave children out of it. We knew very well that any overreach there could provoke the most ancient blood libel against us, that we groom and abuse kids. You can bring up your children however you like, we promised. We will leave you alone. We will leave your children alone. So what did the gender revolutionaries go and do? They focused almost entirely on children and minors. And that's exactly what they did. It's crazy to me that that's what they did. So, and then he talks about how kids all over the country were impacted, right? Your children in school are being taught things like they can change their sex. I mean, I have a case that a lot of you have heard of where this woman's, I guess it's April Despain, her son's the teacher, her third grade teacher of her son, read a book called Call Me Max to the class. Call Me Max is a book where a girl is pretending to be a boy in elementary school and wants people to call her Max. It's offensive if you believe that there are only two sexes, which I think everybody knows is true. I don't really think it's a belief. I just think it's a fact. And it's really offensive, and it was done without the parents' permission, because a lot of these schools are full of activists who believe that they can target your children and they can do things with them, to them, without your permission as a parent. Okay, so I think I think we're gonna get a call in a few minutes, because I think Monica might call in, and we were gonna talk about this is a little bit of a side note. We'll come back to this article. Okay, by the way, if you want to call in, you can call in anytime today. It is 385-899-2134. I always like hearing from you, so feel free to call in. We're going to have Monica Wilbur, I think, call in. And we're going to talk about the three people that the GOP State Central Committee have sent to Governor Cox to fill the role of Molly Hart on the Utah State Board of Education. So the three people that the State Central Committee sent up, like I talked about last week, were Aaron Longacre, Chris Kimball, and Glenn Burton. All three of these guys are fantastic conservatives. So I honestly, I think we win no matter who he picks. And I'm assuming that he can only pick between those three. That's my understanding of it. But she'll be able to call in because she's much more in tune with what goes on at the USBE, and maybe give us some insights about what we should be looking for in our USBE members, and also what we should think about. I think maybe she'll have some insights into how Governor Cox is leaning. I don't really know. I haven't heard any good rumors about it. This would have been a more clear answer had they sent two conservatives and a liberal up. Right, then we would have been able. I think in that case, Governor Cox would have picked the liberal, because I think he's actually a Democrat. But he got three conservatives, so I'm interested to see which of the three he picks. They're all great picks, so that'll be really fascinating to see. Okay, while we wait for that, I'm going to continue here. And then he talks about how the most radical thing that these groups pushed was quote unquote, gender affirming care for minors, which can lead to irreversible sex changes for children. The care included off-label blockers to arrest puberty, almost always followed with cross-sex hormones. And what this does to kids is it actually sterilizes them and makes it so that they'll never have sexual pleasure as adults. Oh, it looks like Monica's on. Okay, cool. You can put her through, Mr. Producer. And we'll come back to this.
Monica, are you there?
I'm here.
Say hello to Goud.
Hey, Goud, how are you?
I'm good, Monica. We were talking a little earlier about the three people that have been sent to Governor Cox as potential replacements for Molly Hart. So we have Aaron Longacre, Chris Kimball, Glenn Burton. Talk about what people should look for in terms of a replacement or for a USBE member. What types of characteristics and qualities should they be looking for in our USBE members?
Characteristics and qualities, that's a really good question. My first priority on that would be somebody who is willing to, I guess, kind of stand up against the system, or stand up to the system, meaning we have too many on there who just rubber stamp the agenda as it comes down from the superintendent, or as it comes from the staff. And we need people who are willing to actually dig a little bit deeper into the issues and be willing to vote against what's just put in front of them. Too often, that's kind of how a lot of the bad stuff just gets through. It's just, they're told this is how we do things. And then they're like, okay, and they go along to get along, and they vote for the garbage. And our schools are no better. So that's the first thing. We need people who are willing to do their homework and not just rubber stamp what comes in front of them. That's a big problem. I think we got 4? Did we get? No, we got. Let's see. We got 3. What I would call, conservatives on the board last election cycle, and there were, I think, high hopes for them. And I've seen some good votes come from maybe 1 or 2 of them on occasion. Not enough, though. And they have a learning curve. So maybe that's the second thing you need people who can recognize the agendas for what they are, and be able to recognize DEI even when it's relabeled. Be able to recognize social emotional learning even when it's been relabeled. Be able to recognize all the character education agendas in all their forms, whether it's DEI, SEL, etc. And then we need somebody who can kind of push back against those things when they see them, and be able to propose what I think are common sense solutions that they're willing to take a stand on and be able to articulate why these solutions are important.
Okay, so I've looked at some of the policies that have been put out by the USBE. So Utah, just for people to know, the Utah State Board of Education. I've looked at some of their policies over the years, and they tend to be extremely long and have a lot of nuance to them that makes it very difficult. I think they must be difficult to implement, and it's also very difficult, I think, for laymen to be able to follow what is going on in there. I guess talk about your experience with these policies and what people should be looking for in them.
Oh my goodness. Okay. My experience with the policies goes back 3-4 years now. Okay. Just showing up, I guess, to the State Board of Education and watching the board meetings and seeing what's being proposed, watching the committee meetings, seeing the discussions that go on there. A lot of their job is to review board rule, and board rule is law. Usually what they do with board rule is the legislators, they pass a bill. The bill becomes law. And then the state board has been granted rulemaking authority from the state legislature, which helps them supposedly implement the bill's provisions. And they don't always invoke the rulemaking authority, but sometimes they do. And when they do, that's when they get really creative. And like you said, they create these kind of long policies, and they're often convoluted, and they're hard to follow. So one of the best things you can do is just kind of just watch and observe, and then take note of the language that is being used, because I don't think really there's very little language that is used in education. The entire field has been saturated with jargon that is pregnant with meaning. What it means is not always what we ascribe it to mean. It's like I describe it like the Tower of Babel. We may be using the same words when we think of the word agency, for instance, but agency in the education realm does not mean what it means to the layperson, like you mentioned before. Yeah. So you need to go research, and so you need to be like, okay, and it takes a lot of time, but it is very worth it, because now you're like, okay, when they're talking about student-led learning, what does that mean? And you don't go to necessarily I never go to what you would call maybe conservative sources to find out what these mean. I always go to the source. So, let's go to the NEA. Let's go to UNESCO. Let's go to KnowledgeWorks. Let's go to any one of these innumerable and frankly almost unknowable number of NGOs, these education policy groups. Let's just find out what they say these things are, and then you get a better picture of, okay, this is what this term really means. This is what civic engagement really means from an educational perspective.
Okay.
And it's usually very different from what, moms and dads have in their minds that those things mean.
Okay, that's really helpful. Mr. Producer is asking if you could, let's see, can you define some of the 3-letter designations and how, well, it's because I think you mentioned DEI. I know I've also heard SEL and then CRT. It might be helpful for viewers to understand just a quick what each of those acronyms means.
Okay, so DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and basically what it equates to is kind of discriminatory practices that are divisive. I think they're demoralizing. They certainly tend to reroute a kid's loyalties towards kind of the collective, and so teach kids to look and look upon the color of the skin, basically. And so they tend to create a very what I would consider a very discriminatory learning environment, where certain kids get more privileges or certain kids are treated differently because of the color of their skin, because they belong to a historically marginalized group. And whether it's based on their skin color, it could be based on their ethnicity, it could be based on their sexuality, you name it. But, those kids end up often getting preferential celebratory treatment because of these factors, which some of which are beyond your control. Like, you can't control what skin color you're born with, right? Like, nobody can control that.
Right.
And so these are, we have immutable characteristics and we have other characteristics as well. That's DEI in kind of a nutshell. It's to kind of create this kind of a redistributive justice framework around these intersectional characteristics. And, the more of a victim you are, the better you usually get treated by the system, or, as far as they classify you as a victim. That's DEI. SEL is social emotional learning, and that's basically character education, or as a board member friend of mine calls it, personality grading. So teaching kids the value systems of the state, and that's not a good thing. Like, that belongs to the home, it belongs to the churches, but schools have big time jumped into that arena, and so it's not good.
Okay. And then is CRT, critical race theory, is that kind of related to DEI?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
Absolutely. Critical race theory is based in this notion of critical consciousness. In other words, we have an oppressed group and oppressors. Go back to Marx, and you get the basic idea. Marx's idea was that you had people who were economically oppressed, and they had to identify by their class. By their class consciousness, like, oh, that guy's a worker, I'm a worker, and that's our bond, and that's what draws us together. And you tend to put that bond above all other bonds. When a revolution based on class identity failed, you had people who took the idea of Marxism and they just kind of reinvented it around not about your socioeconomic status, but rather around your race or around your gender or around your sexuality, etc., your ethnicity. And so those were the new oppressed groups. And then the oppressors were anybody who, I guess, had been viewed as traditionally to wield the whips of power, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's, critical race theory is kind of based around this idea of looking at the world, through the lens of we have victims and victimizers, and it doesn't matter. No matter what you do, the victims continue to be victims,
Yeah.
even if.
Yeah. Okay, then I guess my next question was about, we have the three people. That was very helpful, by the way, so thank you. I think even for that, it's always illuminating for me to hear more about these different ideas and the systems and how they try to promote them, because it's crazy, totally crazy. There's three people that have been put up for this the vacant school board seat. It's Aaron Longacre, Chris Kimball, and Glenn Burton. Let's talk about your feelings about these three picks and how they'll fit into the kind of qualities you said that we want to look for in a board member. Oh, we lost her. Okay, that was really interesting too. Okay, Mr. Producer, bring her back. Okay, I guess maybe we lost her. Oh, do I lose my producer? Oh, I think I lost my producer. That's what I was wondering. I thought she got kind of cut off there on the CRT piece. Let's see what happens here. I think he might be back. Let's see if he comes back for me. Are you there, Mr. Producer? Or I just let someone really random into the stream and I'm going to get porn bombed or something. Yeah, it's like my biggest fear in life. I was doing some research on today's show, and in a little while here we'll talk about this whole steak dinner Republican thing.
I think
And
we're
let me
back.
just say, I put in.
I think
Okay,
we're back.
is Monica still there?
Yes, she is, and well, she's on the phone, so we didn't lose. I lost the internet connection for a second. So go ahead. Back
Okay, perfect.
CRT.
Oh, hey, Monica. Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, Monica.
Yeah. So basically,
Go ahead. No, because I think you got cut off a little bit at the end when you were just finishing up the CRT point.
You were finishing up your CRT. Okay. Finish it off and fire on.
Yeah. So just, CRT is identity politics, basically. And all of it's bad. What we need in people who are in education, who are trying to represent people, we need people who can identify these ideologies, these agendas, and see them for what they are. That's really the biggest thing right now. The schools are just kind of ground zero. It's a battle for these kids' minds and hearts. And like I like to say, what we have is the left, but the left is exploiting our kids over social agendas. But the right, we have exploitation there too, and the right is exploiting them over economic agendas. And so the right is trying to kind of turn our schools into these these little workforce factory pipelines. Like here, let's get the kid into a profession and let's make them, put them in a pathway at an early age because, some industry partner in the state says, oh gosh, we need 25,000 hospitality workers, in the next 10 years. So we want the schools to produce those for us. And that's not good for kids either. And what we really need are state board members, school board members who can see the agendas. And realize that, their vote is important and we need people to vote against that kind of thing.
Okay. So that was really helpful. And so we have the three people that have been put up to fill the vacant Utah State Board of Education seat. We've got Aaron Longacre, Chris Kimball, and Glenn Burton. Talk about any insights you have in terms of their capabilities or how they fit into your, the characteristics you said are important for a state school board member.
All right. Well, I love that group of individuals that the state central committee selected of all the candidates. What a wonderful, marvelous group they selected. I think that's like a huge. I hope people know that was. It seems weird, we selected three bona fide conservatives, to be selected for the state board, but that is a bigger win than I think most people know. So way to go, State Central Committee. Just way to go. And I love that they picked, these people for different reasons. They are very distinct, I think, individually, but each brings, I think, very important strengths. Would they be, if they were to be selected? Chris Kimball, for instance, she has just a very strong record of advocacy on conservative issues. She was one of the original fighters against Common Core, and she recognizes the agendas in the schools. She's constitutionally principled and minded. I love that. I love that. We need more of that, not less. And so I think she just brings a very mature strength, and that she would be an excellent choice. Besides, at the convention last year, like she had something like 67% of the delegates vote for this position, and then Molly Hart, buys her way onto the ballot and wins in the primary. But really, by rights, that seat should be Chris Kimball's. If Molly Hart knew she was going to be selected as the state board superintendent, this is how it goes. But I'm glad that Chris is running again. Yeah, Erin Longacre, she has a very strong track record of advocating for parents against social emotional learning. She was one of that original group of parents in Canyons that was fighting against the second step curriculum that was, grading kids on their social emotional mindsets, their attitudes, their values, their dispositions, and teaching them, how to be empathetic and all that kind of garbage. And so, she was one of the original parents who was saying, this isn't okay. She's been fighting against the pornography in the schools. I just think, she's done a lot of great, wonderful things as a parent while being involved in the school still, she volunteers and she does her best to try to, I think, make those classroom experiences good for her kids. And I that's a great energy to bring to the state board, is that, that raw mom energy, here we are, and I'm fighting for what's right for my kids. I love it. And then we have Glenn Burton. And he's amazing. Glenn has been involved, I think, in a lot of conservative causes here in the state of Utah. For a while there, he was coming to the state board, to listen and to be there to support other parents who were fighting things like the DEI and the SEL. And he's also involved with the parents group that's been fighting again the porn in the schools, because the issue still hasn't gone away. And I love how he just has this very clear-headed, back to basics viewpoint of what education should be. He's not for all this tech in the schools that's been taking over the kids' learning and allowing the porn to proliferate in our kids' hands. And so, just bravo to him. He's really done a wonderful job. Any one of those three, I think, would be fantastic. And I'm so grateful that the FCC just made some great choices there.
Yeah, that's a great. I've actually been saying that. I think we win no matter who gets picked. I was surprised that they came out with 3 conservative, solid picks. Pleasantly surprised, and I don't have anything negative to say about any of these people. No matter who gets picked, I think we win. So I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see what happens.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, there were some candidates, I think, who were running, and there was kind of a disconnect between, maybe some of the things that they were answering on surveys and the things that they were telling the SEC members, and in speeches, to hear a candidate get up there who attends DEI conferences, who has been promoting DEI agendas in the schools, and to hear them say, "Oh, I'm against DEI." Well, there's the walk and then there's the talk, and I'm glad that the SEC members could differentiate. There was still a lot of people, I mean, maybe too many for my comfort, who voted for, I think, what I would consider establishment-like candidates. But thankfully enough, we're able to see that, we just needed to send 3 solid conservatives, and then we win no matter what. But if you send 2 conservatives and a wolf in sheep's clothing to Cox, who do you think he's going to pick? It's pretty obvious, right? You've lost right there. So I think we made it very clear that this is the will of the governing body of the Republican Party here in Utah, that you pick somebody conservative for that spot. We sure could use it.
Yeah. Hey, just final question. Do you have any insights into how Governor Cox is leaning in terms of who he will pick to fill the slot?
I think he's probably like leaning over his knees and moaning that he has to be conservative. I have no. I mean, it's got to be painful for him. He's got to pick one of them. I don't have any idea how he is going to, how he's going to lean there. I think what they try to do is, and this is how it goes every time, you have somebody now who, is in a position of power, right, of influence. They've now, they've got a platform, so to speak. And I think what's going to happen is the establishment is going to descend or try to descend on whoever gets selected. And they'll probably try to descend even before to try to feel them out, kind of poke them and prod them and maybe see, where's your Achilles heel? Are you somebody that we can use and work with and maybe turn to our ends? This is generally what happens because, regardless of whoever gets elected, because, they're trying to see, how is this a person who will go along with the agenda? And if not, how can we maybe prod them in that direction? So I don't know. Maybe he's already sent out feelers through, through third parties. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him because it's a political game. And I think they want to lose as little as possible. And so I think they're going to try to look at to see, maybe which candidate do we think has the most give. Thankfully, I think we have three very strong candidates. And I'm really, I'm feeling really good about them. I think he's going to have a hard time finding, holes in the armor. But we'll see. If he picks somebody, I think he's going to try to pick somebody who he thinks maybe might not have a really good chance of getting reelected. But, who knows? That can depend on a lot of factors, and a lot changes in 4 years. So who knows?
Okay. Well, thanks for calling in, Monica. We appreciate the insights.
Yeah, thanks, Goud. You have a good day. We'll see you.
Okay, well, hey, that was really helpful. So I it's nice. I'm not the only one that thinks we are actually winning no matter who gets picked here. It's a great point on her part, though, that they might be looking to see who they think is least likely to be able to get reelected. But I don't know if that means anything because that seat was just won in 24. So there's plenty of time for whoever gets picked to become a candidate and to be able to run on a record when they run in 28 for reelection. So, hey, I'm excited to see who he picks. That'll probably be coming up, I assume, sometime soon. I actually don't know how long he gets to be able to do that. Okay, so I was going to switch back to this my little topic I was talking about, but I think for right now we'll switch to my next topic. We'll come back to this. Because I talk about gay stuff all the time. We're not really talking. We're talking about LGBTQ plus IAFU plus minus stuff. So I want to talk next about steak dinner Republicans. I'm trying to understand, and I know I talked a little bit about this last week, and I'm just trying to understand where do we go from here. So I want to show you this post. And we'll have a oh wait, this isn't the post. Oh, hold on. I picked the wrong post, sorry. Do this again. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So I thought this was interesting today. So Rochelle Morris posted this, and I guess she is a steak dinner Republican. I don't know. And, you know, this is what's happening. There's a split in the Republican Party in Utah between. I actually think the split is actually more fundamental than what's coming out in this idea of the steak dinner Republican. I think this is just more of a, you know, of a kind of it's just a term to be able to identify people who might be part of the problem. They may not be, though. I don't know. So in here, though, there are a couple that kind of struck in her list that struck me as kind of interesting. One is Amelia for Utah. That's Amelia Powers Gardner, who I talked about last week. So she is now an elected county commissioner in Utah. She literally sexually harassed a man for being gay. She was found to have done it by the Utah County Attorney. And so I don't understand why the Republican Party has done nothing about that. They haven't done a thing. There's not even any condemnation. There's no criticism. And in fact, I don't think Rochelle actually would support what Amelia did to that employee. So I'm just surprised that she included her on this list. And then the other one is Kira Birkland, who talk about, that woman has made multiple false, well, at least there's no evidence of them, these like false claims. And I don't understand what her, you know, the first one was she got attacked, and I talked about this before as well, but she claims she got attacked in a bathroom during the 2016 Republican convention because Kira Birkland was a never Trumper. And so she went into this bathroom at the convention. If you've ever been to a convention, everybody has a lanyard on with their name on it and stuff like that. So she claims she went into the bathroom and these ladies in the bathroom yelled at her because she was not supporting Trump. I guess she was supporting Cruz maybe. I'm not even sure what she was doing. But she could never name anyone that was involved in this quote unquote attack. And of course it was just never, no one ever investigated to figure out what happened, because I think she made it up. And then last year at the Republican state convention, she made up a story claiming that her daughter and her daughter's friends, who are all adults, so they're 19, 20 years old, that they got body shamed by somebody because they showed up in their gym clothes to the state convention to go and pick up Kira. Now, I'll just say, it's possible. I think it's totally possible that someone told them your clothes are not appropriate at a convention, because I see how women dress at the gym, especially younger women. And I got to tell you, a lot of times I'm like, I don't think that's appropriate clothing. I'm really shocked that you're wearing that. It's uncomfortable too. So if you're wearing that to a state convention, that's probably not appropriate. And if that happened, Kira should thank the woman for telling her daughter, that's not how you dress to a state convention. Like, part of being an adult at 19, 20 is that you need to understand that there are appropriate ways to dress to certain events. And just on that, then it turned out, I don't even think the story is true. I think Kira just made it up because she was trying to attack the convention process because Phil won at convention. And she was part of this. There are multiple stories that came out. None of them, no one saying a story has presented even a scintilla of evidence. So you have Lieutenant Governor Henderson claimed that her nieces were harassed because they were her nieces. I don't think that's true. No evidence. And here's the thing: I doubt anyone even knows who her nieces are. I wouldn't be able to spot, like, for most people, I can't even spot their kids and be like, oh, that's your kid, unless I've met them multiple times. On top of that, Holly, what is her? Is it Richardson? Holly Richardson. She does that. She's at Holly on the Hill on X, and she runs Utah Policy. She lied, completely made up a story about saying, quote, blatant displays of white supremacy, unquote, at the Republican convention. They were blatant, but she does not have a single effing picture of them. So total fraud. And then the third story was this Kira Birkland story. So I don't know why you would why you'd want to list her in an approving way, because I think Kira is a fraud and a liar. Oh, and Mr. Producer agrees with me, but he says in his humble opinion. But I'm telling you, she's a fraud and a liar. I called her out on Facebook because she was going back and forth with me saying she clearly had watched the episode where I went through her claims and was talking about how there's no evidence of them and how I think she's a liar. And so she posted something on Facebook and her and I were going back and forth. And then she originally said when about the event that happened last year at the Republican State Convention that she didn't have time to go and find this woman who had made comments about her daughter. And so she ran out of the convention to go catch a flight. And then more recently, she says, no, we looked everywhere for this person. We couldn't find her. And I was like, your story is, number one, your story is not consistent. But number two, why were you looking for this person? What role do you have in terms of an interaction that your adult daughter had with this old lady who was volunteering? What is your role in that as an elected official? I think it was to go and to intimidate her, because I think elected officials here do this type of stuff a lot, where they really do, there's no role. If you have an adult child, if I went home at 19 and told my mom something happened, my mother was not showing up to then go and talk to people for me. And she's not an elected official, but like, she's not getting involved. She may give me advice on how to handle things, and she still does today. But like she's not she's not going to go there and do things for me because I'm an adult. It's my job as an adult to do it. Kira's 19-year-old daughter should be able to go and handle her own misunderstandings with people if they actually happen. Now, let's be honest, I think typically the fruit does not fall far from the tree. So mama's a fraud. Probably the daughters learn from her. Okay, so Mr. Producer says, anyway, I just want to show this because I just think the choice of people that she is associating with is a little bit odd to me. The other people I don't really care about. I mean, maybe they're staked in our Republicans, maybe they're not. I don't know. Okay, but let's get more into the nuts and bolts of this, because Mr. Producer says, and he is, I think, accurate, the term stake dinner Republican is a humorous or satirical phrase that plays on the common practice of political figures, particularly Republicans in recent times, hosting fundraising dinners in upscale steakhouses. Oh. I just want to say, no one has ever invited me to a steakhouse for a dinner. If you did, you'd actually probably get more support from me because I love steak. Although I think here, okay, I got now I think that's true generally. I think on a more specific level here, it's referring to how the Lymans were, like, there were the two Lymans that ran as write-in candidates against Phil Lyman for the governor's race. And what the story was is that they were offered a stake. The guy who was running, Richard Lyman. So there were two people. Sorry, hold on. Let me take this back. So after Phil lost the primary, right? And I think there are problems. Let me step back one more. Okay. So Phil Lyman won a convention, right? But they still had and he won so much that there should not have been a primary, meaning that if you get over 60% of the vote at the convention, then traditionally there would not have been a primary because you have now won the Republican nomination. But because of SB 54, Governor Cox was able to circumvent that convention result. And yes, Disagree Butter just said, I'm getting to this. I thought steak dinner Republicans referred to the Richard Lyman steak dinner. Yes, you're accurate. That's actually what it refers to. But okay, so he circumvented that convention result by, he was supposed to collect 28,000 verified signatures from registered Republicans throughout the state. You can collect them anywhere. And so, but I think it's pretty definitive that he did not actually collect 28,000 signatures. And I think the reason he wasn't able to collect them is that people don't like him. They didn't want him to be governor again, and so they didn't sign his petition. But because the lieutenant governor is on the same ticket as him and she controls the election system, because she's our head of elections, she went ahead and said he collected the signatures and put him on the ballot. And so I think that issue has not been resolved, meaning We still don't have transparency on the signature petitions. We still don't know exactly how many verified signatures he got. They will not show us the documents, meaning regular people. They will not show it to you. They're holding it all. Only government officials can see this stuff. And then they're expecting you to trust them. So we don't have any sort of transparency on this at all. None, nothing. It's actually pretty ridiculous. Now we have Michael Clara, who's been going in and doing all these grammar requests, and he has gotten a lot of information about those petitions, what's been going on with them. I mean, it's pretty amazing. He was able to predict who would be criminally charged. He's able to think ahead of where the Attorney General's office is and where the Lieutenant Governor's office is, and even where the auditor is, because he's gathered so much information and organized it so well. He knows where the weaknesses are of their arguments. Okay, so then Phil lost the primary, but like I said, the primary I don't think should have happened because I don't think Governor Cox actually collected the 28,000 signatures. So, but we have it. Phil loses. Phil then says, "I'm going to run a write-in campaign." Okay, what the governor did allegedly, I'll say allegedly on this, but is that someone associated with him, a friend, whatever, went and asked Richard Lyman and Carol Lyman. So Richard Lyman is a man. I was gonna say a son, and Carol Lyman is his mother. And apparently the story is that this person associated with Governor Cox offered Richard Lyman a steak dinner and I think $1,000 if he would run a write-in campaign for governor. So the idea was to cause confusion on the write-in ballots, and this is the impact of it. If only Phil Lyman runs for governor as a write-in, then all you have to do is write Lyman on your ballot, and it would obviously count for Phil. But if Richard Lyman also runs as a write-in candidate, if you write Lyman on your ballot, then it actually will get thrown out because the clerk will not be able to determine who you intended to vote for. So that's kind of the purpose. That was the purpose behind that. So, and now I think Disagree Better is right. After the election happened and Governor Cox did go on an apology tour, and he allegedly apologized to state Republicans. But I'll say the invite list to that tour were very selective. I think it was meant at people who are maybe more about, and you can kind of see the difference, right? I have a lot of friends that were invited to those meetings, and I think they are much more prone to not want any sort of disputes or anything they think that will destroy unity. And that's kind of the argument. So like, I was not invited. I wasn't invited. You know, like, okay, I mean, I understand why he didn't invite me, because the reality is that lots of gay men like me, and he probably would have been very attracted to me. He wouldn't be able to control himself, so to speak. It's kind of a joke, but also kind of true. But, you know, like, I think he didn't invite me, and there's a lot of really conservative people he did not invite. And there's other conservatives he invited that I think are just more prone to thinking we should just have unity and we should move on. And so the steak dinner Republicans, I think, my understanding of this is that these are people who are saying that we should just move on from what happened in 2024, that we should not drill down into what I think is complete and utter, I think it was fraud. What Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson did to get themselves on the ballot was a fraud. They committed fraud. They put themselves on the ballot even though they did not collect the 28,000 signatures. And we actually, at this point, all of the signature petitions should be released to the public, and we should have a full accounting of what happened. And the end result of that accounting would be to completely and utterly, I think, destroy their careers, which would be good. It would be good for Utah and it would be good for America, because cheaters should not be in office, right? Okay, hold on. So just so you know, you're listening to KMMU Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, YouTube, Rumble, and our website, kmmu.org. Like, follow, and hit the subscribe button on your favorite platform. And thanks for listening. Call in live and talk to me. 385-899-2134. Okay, so let me just do one thing real quick. Okay, so first we had this post, and I apologize. Oh, this is actually from Sophie. So this happened after that state central committee election, right? And she said, huge win for Utah's kids today and a huge loss for the steak dinner Republicans. These quote unquote Republicans, and this image she has here are the people who endorsed Rob Axson for the party chair. And so what's kind of interesting about this is that the people that endorse him, and look, I think Rob is a very nice guy. He's a super nice guy. And you can, like I say, he called into the show. I think he's actually someone that is willing to have conversations. But I think he failed as chair because he allowed that cheating by the governor and lieutenant governor to happen, and for them to access the Republican primary ballot, even though they didn't have the signatures they needed. And it's a real problem because it just shows you what happens when you control the election system, right? You control the election system, you control the results. And that's what Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson basically did. So Sophie had posted this thing, and she said, these Republicans, so these are the ones that supported Rob Axson, believe their lies, gaslighting, and selling out tactics would assure that the SEC would not be dominated by Lyman Republicans. They were wrong. The newly elected SEC voted to send 3 true conservatives to Spencer Cox to appoint as the new USBE member. We put him in a pick your poison situation. Thank you, thank you. And, again, like we just talked about this, these are 3 fantastic picks. So I give credit where credit's due. I love humor. And so John Johnson makes fun of it, right? Totally fair, because he's been tagged as one of the steak dinner Republicans. And he says, tired of getting tired of getting grilled for not being pure enough? Had your fill of outrage buffets and circular firing squads? Come join Steak Dinner Republicans, where we serve up principled policy, civil debate, and actual results. We pass laws, not litmus tests. We fight the left without burning down the right. And yes, we still know how to enjoy steak with someone who disagrees on the seasoning. Pull up a chair, the adults are eating. Okay, so it's I don't have any, I think this is all good stuff. People, we actually should have this debate, right? We need this debate to happen, because until we make our way through this, I think there's a real danger here that a lot of the Republicans that are in elected offices or even party chairs are not realizing where this is heading. And I think actually Salt Lake County is at the biggest risk in all of this. Susan Beretta says Cox had some kind of meeting with GOP grassroots influencers, and they came out of that meeting saying, Cox isn't so bad. That's accurate. I was not there, so I don't know what dinner was served, if any. Yeah, I know. I wonder if they actually got steak dinners. At least if they got a steak dinner, I'd have more respect for them for selling out. But if you got nothing except words, then that's boo on you. It's kind of lame. And actually, that's actually a great point, because a lot of times what you find is that people go into these meetings, and beforehand they understand, they're like, God, this guy is horrible. He's a bad elected official. He does not accomplish the things that I want to be accomplished. He's all talk. And when he accomplishes things, they're actually things that the left wants. And then they go into a meeting with him, and then they come out and they're like, oh, he said all these nice things and he promised to do better in the future. Well, you will not convince me with that. Like, talk doesn't work, because again, I think you should look at someone's record. If they've shown you who they are, believe them. That's that simple. Once Cox has shown you who he is, he's not a conservative. If he's a conservative, then man, I don't know what a liberal is, right? I mean, he's not conservative, and he's shown you that. Oh my God, can I just tell you, a bird just flew into my glass sliding door, and this happens almost every day. I don't know what's going on. Freaking me out. Okay, so then Okay, so what this has turned into, though, that I think is interesting, and I moved the post, and now we have another post by Senator Johnson. And by the way, I tried to call him today. He called me last week. I wasn't able to talk to him, but I did try to call him today. I'll try to get him to come on the show because I'd like to continue this conversation on a broader level with people who have been classified as steak dinner Republicans. If he's one of them. So he said here, okay, he said. So he's talking about people that have been classified as steak dinner Republicans, that we believe in persuasion over purity tests, results over rhetoric, and actually governing instead of grandstanding. If that makes us rhinos to some, so be it. But don't be fooled. We're still pushing back against woke ideology, fighting for school choice, and defending the Constitution. We just prefer to do it with our heads on straight and our bridges unburned. Okay, so here's the thing. We have a supermajority Republican legislature. Okay, I just want to make this point because I don't understand what we're talking about. We're still pushing back against woke ideology. We have a supermajority Republican legislature. How difficult is it to win that issue? And in fact, it's very popular. If you win that issue, you will have parents that are thrilled across the state that you have protected their children from being exposed to ideologies they do not want their children exposed to in schools. But you haven't won the issue yet. We can't, let me put it this way. We can't even get porn out of schools. This is the easiest issue I could come up with. And I think they purposely won't solve it. Oh, geez. Oh, my God. There's this bird going crazy. It just hit the door again. Oh, sorry. That's like freaking me out. What's going on? Okay, so I wonder if it's drunk or something. What was I saying? Oh, it's the easiest issue you could win. In Florida, they passed a bill, and the bill just says, if you take a book and you read it at a school board meeting, and they tell you that you can't read it, it has to be taken off the shelves. The law is that easy. That's all this takes. And I'll just give you an example. I went with Candace Duncan and Sylvia Mirafis. The three of us went to the Salt Lake City Library. Candace actually asked us to go with her. And we were trying to get them to move. They have all those pornographic books on the shelves. So genderqueer, this book is gay. This book is gay is actually one of the worst ones because it's essentially I know, it's probably true. Susan says, Goud, you were cast in an Alfred Hitchcock movie. I know. I'll just hopefully nothing happens. Well, hopefully if something's gonna happen, it happens while I'm live streaming, so you guys can all see it. It'll at least be worth it. Maybe I get more followers at that point. But okay, so we went to the Salt Lake City Library has these books on the shelves, and this book is gay is one of them. It actually tells your children how to go and get onto hookup apps and how to use them quote unquote safely. And so when I see stuff like that, I don't think that should be accessible to minors. And so we went to this meeting and we gave our little talks. I gave my talk, like we should take this off the shelves, blah, blah, blah. Sylvia gave her talk, and then Candace got up there and she started reading excerpts from the books. I mean, it was like, whoa, but very memorable. It was kind of crazy. But at one point while she was doing it, Sarah Reel is a woke lesbian who is an elected member of the Utah State Board of Education and who is also on the board for the Salt Lake City Library. So this is essentially like a woke activist who is kind of a great example of what the left does. She's infiltrated into every government space she can to push her really disturbing agenda. So while Candace is talking and reading excerpts from these books that are on the shelves for your children to access, Sarah goes, I'm going to object because I think that this violates some law. And the law is about you're not like everyone can watch this stream. And so we don't want to put like pornographic stuff in the stream. Well, if you can't read the book to the public, why is it on the shelves for your children to access? And those same books are in your schools. We can't get our legislature to pass simple bills like that. So just like a counter to John's point is, I don't know why you're fighting the woke ideology. Why don't you just win the issue and kill it so that we don't have to keep talking about it? I don't want to talk about pornographic books in schools or libraries. I would rather they just not be available to children. This seems like a really easy thing. And the way to do it is just pass a bill saying, look, if a parent takes that book and reads it at a public meeting and gets shut down, book has to be pulled from the shelves. We're done. That's it. Problem solved. Every parent can just go look in their child's school library, pull all the books with pornographic stuff, go to the school board meeting, read it. It'll get pulled. Problem solved. Instead, we get these complicated bills where they're like, "Oh, we're going to set up a committee, and then when you have a offensive book, you have to take it to the committee, and all the parents can read it to determine if it has any sort of value." Well, I don't want to go through all of that. Why are we doing that? Of course, if you live in like around where I live, I think actually if you go to Daybreak, someone told me to drive through Daybreak to see all their pride flags. Like, oh my God, holy moly! I was shocked. That could have been Washington, D.C. over there. There were so many, and not even the pride flags, but the progress pride flags with the crazy trans stuff on it, like the ugly triangle, and then black and brown stripes. I was like, I can't even, like, this is Daybreak. Daybreak. It's totally woke. So get a bunch of those parents in there on this committee. They're probably going to approve the book. And the point is, we don't want that book. This should be easy. A supermajority Republican legislature should be able to solve a problem like that overnight. Sometimes, I will be honest, I think they do it because it's a grifting mechanism. So they'll keep coming to you and saying, hey, guys, we need more money in donations so that we can solve this problem for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, wink, wink, nod, nod. And then they'll keep on passing bills that are ineffective. Okay. I'm trying to think if I can think of another one. Okay, so that's kind of like, that's the point. That's what's weird about this, right? Is it's this constant. I think some of what John is saying is that a lot of elected officials, and I'm not saying he necessarily is like this, but a lot of them have very thin skin. And so if they get criticized at all in any way they don't like, then they're going down this path of, you didn't talk to me properly. You should talk to me the right way. Oh yeah. Yeah, but put the caller through, Mr. Producer.
Let's give it a try. Alex, can you hear us?
Oh, it's Alex.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you have anything to add about steak dinner Republicans, Alex?
Tuesday, light me up. Hey, I was just listening to you talking about people being thin-skinned. That wasn't like a veiled insult at me, was it?
No, not at all.
Okay, now I have a few questions. I've been taking notes because I'm concerned that way. So earlier, you were going on and on about, I don't even know what, but you used that word scintilla. Now, could you spell that for me? I just want to make sure I have it right in my notes.
Scintilla.
Okay, we'll check that later. I'll get back with you on that one. All right. Now, earlier you were talking about potato and steak dinners.
Yes.
And you said something about potato never falls far from the couch. I think you were talking about your mom.
Oh my God. I don't think my mom would like that kind of thing.
I got to tell you, watching this podcast of yours, this whole thing has been like looking both ways before crossing the street and getting hit by an airplane. And that bird that hit your window, now that's been happening to me a lot. That happened the other day, and I went out there to see what in the world had just happened. And that bird was just jerking and sparking out its eyeballs and its neck and earballs and everything. What do you think that was? Have you checked on those birds that are hitting your window?
Yeah, they keep flying away. I don't think there's an issue.
You better watch that.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Do you have anything pertinent to our show today, Alex?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is pertinent, but I'm just going to leave you with a thought. Okay. So, you know that city, Atlanta, Georgia? Yeah. Okay. Do you think it's named Atlanta because it's so close to the Atlantic? Atlantic. You see that connection? I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay. Are you? Maybe Alex is actually from Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. But thank you for listening. We appreciate your comments. I hope those birds are okay to keep hitting your windows. Maybe there's something going on. Like they do all that. That's the seeding the clouds and stuff. Maybe that's impacting the birds. I don't know. Or maybe that bird is upset. I have these feeders behind my house, and I usually fill them up every day, and I haven't been doing it for a while. So maybe the side effect of that is that birds will attack me if I don't feed them, which is kind of crazy. Think about it. Okay, so anyway, I think this is kind of interesting because there's this back and forth going on now between these different types of Republicans. And so, like I was saying earlier, I think it's going to impact how the parties operate because, one of the things, Salt Lake County is your main swing area, right? Meaning there's like a huge Democrat part in the northern and the eastern part of the county. That's where all kind of the wealthy white liberals live. And then the rest of the county is more swingy. There's a theory that turnout is not as high in the Republican parts of the counties compared to the Democrat parts of the counties. And that's why so many of these Democrats win elections here. Hold on, let me make sure that Mr. Producer is muted. And so, and there's some movement. I think the new party chair, Mike Carey, wants to be able to increase the turnout in Republican areas so that you will maybe be able to beat Democrats in some of these county-wide seats, especially because this year is a big year. Or not this year, sorry, next 26. You're going to have the district attorney up. He's on the ballot. He's he's Soros backed and very ideological, like lefty, he's kind of your typical Soros prosecutor. You have your clerk on the ballot, Lanny Chapman. So she is Soros funded. And I think she presents a lot of problems as well. And then I'm trying to think if there's another one, isn't there as well? We just had the mayor. I don't know if we'll have, and then we'll have Lori Stringham's seat. You'll have the at-large county council seat. I think down here you'll actually have, where I live in Riverton, our county council seat will be up. So Sheldon Stewart is my county council rep. I guess you'll get a couple more like that. So you have these very big races that are going to happen. The bigger ones are those county-wide ones, and you're going to need manpower to be able to go and knock doors and get people to vote Republican. And I think next year could be a tough year for Republicans. I think it should be a good year because despite all the problems with the Republican Congress, because essentially, I mean, I hate to say this, but most of them are probably rhinos. We still have Trump doing a lot of really great things, like mass deportations. Like, I can't tell you how happy that makes me and how I think it's actually having a positive impact throughout the country in terms of making places less crowded, getting these people out of here. If you're here illegally, you need to leave. This isn't your country. Go home. They're stealing jobs. And so when they leave, those jobs have to be filled by Americans. And the wages will go up because there's less competition for labor, and there's not the ability to go and hire illegal people who you can hold that over their head and pay them less. Housing is opening up because, again, they leave behind apartments and houses and condos and all of this stuff. Cars, they'll have to sell their cars. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff out of this that I think benefits everyday Americans. Oh, and then finally, crime drops because illegal aliens actually commit crimes at higher rates than Americans. They'll try to tell you, the establishment, that it's not true, but that's total and utter BS, and they know it's BS. So that's my point, is that there's so much good things happening, and it's all 100%. It's Trump, it's all Trump. It's not the Congress. The Congress has passed like nothing since he's gotten into office. It's embarrassing. It's so bad. But I think we're gonna end up in a tough year because the left is like super motivated to get out there. They got to protect those illegal aliens. The Democratic Party knows that they cannot win over native-born Americans. They can't win elections based on only native-born Americans. Their party is for foreigners. That is what it is. And for mentally unstable affluent, liberal, white females, also known as awful. Alex, if you're listening, Mr. Producer said, thanks for calling. It made him laugh. Okay. So anyway, like that's what their party's about. And so if you love the country, if you don't want to see illegal aliens steal jobs from your fellow Americans, if you don't want them using your resources, flooding your schools, getting all sorts of free stuff from us, so they get food stamps, they're getting rent subsidies and help to pay for rent. They're getting mortgage assistance. There's a local woman here who has documented how our even state and local governments they like funnel money through nonprofits to then give illegal aliens help buying homes here. It's outrageous, and we should get them all out of here. So Trump's been doing really good stuff, even on the international front, on the domestic front. Really, like he's firing on all cylinders. The issue is Congress. We will have a tough election because of that, and so we're going to need manpower. And I just don't know if you have, because that Republican convention ended up 52-48 in favor of Rob over Phil. That's close. So let's say you have 48% of your volunteers don't show up this year. How are you going to win? Do you think that those people that are more establishment are going to be doing door knocking and like running around and making up for that manpower that these volunteers can do for you? I don't think you will. That's my personal opinion. I just don't think that these people that are quote unquote staked in are Republicans are going to be able to work and get this done without the help of that other contingent of the party. And the kind of attitude I'm feeling from the people that are feeling like they're being labeled as staked in are Republicans and offended by it is that they don't think that they've done anything wrong. And I'm not saying that for Senator Johnson, he's in an elected position. So one of the questions I have when we get him on the show will be like, does he think the questions that people are asking about Governor Cox's signature petitions are legitimate? And does he think that the legislature needs to address that? I think that's a question we need to find out, because I'm totally confused right now about whether he thinks it is. Now, here's some other, I thought these were kind of interesting. You've got like Carolyn Fippen here talked about how just started listening to Jack Posobiec's new book on humans. He says, okay, so this is about tactics. And so here's what I think is happening. On the people that are calling people staked in are Republicans, they're upset, and I think legitimately so, that this issue about the signatures is not being addressed. And I don't know that it leads to Governor Cox being, impeached out of office. I doubt it would, because I think, unfortunately, you don't see impeachments of anyone. Literally, I mean, we have judges there's a judge who gave a light sentence to someone who had child pornography, and the legislature, again, the super majority of Republican legislature's response is to demand that he resigns. They could just call themselves into session tomorrow and impeach and remove him from office. Problem solved. But they don't. Instead of doing that, which I think is simple, they're demanding that you should resign. Like, it's basically like sending a what's it called, like a strongly worded letter, and the guy's not resigning. And the court the Supreme Court actually came out and defended him. And so, like, you can kind of see, like, if they're not willing to do that one, which I think is an easy impeachment, or how about there's the judge who has put HB 11. This is a bill that bans, actually, if it works properly, bans boys from playing girls' sports. He stayed that bill, and it's been in this weird status for months now. I think for years, and there's no resolution to it. Why the legislature, if they want to handle it, all they have to do is go and impeach and remove that judge from office. Problem solved. Hey, you're not following the Constitution. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says boys can play girls' sports and vice versa. That's not a thing. And we're not acknowledging transgenderism among children. So you got to go. Bye-bye. But they can't do that. So I would not expect them to do that to Governor Cox, even if he did cheat. I don't think we have the type of men and women who have the cojones to do that. That takes a lot of cojones, and I haven't seen it in anything that's happened in this state since I moved here. But I mean, generally, I haven't seen it across the country. You know, think about the federal Congress. They could impeach and remove judges that are holding up Trump's agenda illegally. They haven't done it. I mean, you have judges saying, "Oh, you have to go bring back illegal aliens that you shipped to El Salvador." I would say if you're in the Congress, that should be a next day. Bring him in, have him testify, impeach him, remove him from office. Done. Let's be done with this. Who wants to spend this time on this? Oh, yeah, Mr. Producer says legislature equals cowards. They're afraid of what the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News says. That's accurate. That's actually very accurate. And they're not good at interacting with the press in general. And you see that, like, most of our legislators don't really interact with the press. They're not able to answer questions about their bills and their policies. You see that across the board. And so that's the reality of it. So the flip side of that is that they're afraid of what the press will say instead of just being able to engage with them, call them out for being liars. I mean, if Holly Richardson is the one I said who claimed that there were, quote, blatant displays of white supremacy, unquote, at the 2024 Utah State Republican Convention, but has not been able to produce a single photo of it because she lied and made it up. If that woman comes to you and asks you a question, you're elected official, your answer to her should be like, you're a liar. You're fake news. Why would I answer any of your questions? I don't even think you should be a media source. You're not media. You're just a liar. Yeah, Mr. Producer says the legislature might want to take a lesson from the Donald. You're fake news. This is accurate. Most of these people are fake news. Or how about Lindsay Aerts? That's another one. Fake news. All she does is pushes agendas. Okay, so that's my point here on this one. Let's see if we got anything here. Oh, and so, okay, so then Senator Johnson, I think, took the steak dinner Republican thing and then turned it into a group. I mean, it said how this all started. It began, as these things often do, with an insult. We were called steak dinner Republicans, not as a compliment, but as a smear. The idea that if you weren't shouting in a parking lot or burning bridges online, you must be part of some elite sellout class. The irony, most of us were the ones writing bills, passing reforms, defending kids in classrooms, although still haven't gotten porn out of classroom, and actually winning the policy battles that matter. I can't really name many policy battles that they've won. So that's just me. So So Steak Dinner Republicans as a group was born as a satirical rebuttal, but it became something more, a home for the coalition builders, or home builders. Maybe I meant home builders. So, the policy fighters, the unashamed adults in the room. We don't demand 100% purity. We demand 100% results. Well, I mean, again, then someone show me the results. And that actually brings me to this one. Here's an example of a result. I had posted, let me put this, I'll show you guys this. Okay, unshare. Oh, replace screen sharing. So here. And so I'm going to just tell you guys about this one. So this map came out and it shows states where photo ID is required, right? So all of the red states require photo ID. The blue states do not. I can actually verify California does not. My parents live there. No photo ID required. In fact, if you try to show your ID, they get mad and they will tell you not to show it to them. So, but this map is wrong. It shows Utah in red, but Utah actually does not require photo ID for mail ballots. If you vote in person, you have to show your ID. I know this because I vote in person. If you vote by mail, your signature counts as your ID. Okay. So John responded and he said, let's see. He said, okay. The map might be referencing. So I just said they need to correct this map. Utah should not show as requiring photo ID because you don't have to show your ID if you use a mail ballot. And over 90% of voters in Utah use mail ballots. So Senator Johnson responds and says, the map might be referencing Utah's new voter ID law, and if so, it's actually a testament to the fact that the legislature did act. HB 300, passed in 2025, begins phasing in voter ID requirements across the board. I don't think he understood that this was about photo ID, not voter ID. For in-person voting, photo ID will be mandatory starting in 2029. That's inaccurate. It's already mandatory if you vote in person. For mail-in ballots, which over 90% of Utahns use, we agree on this point, voters will soon need to provide a state-issued ID number or last four of the Social Security number, replacing signature-only verification. So yes, the map may reflect Utah's new direction on election security, but that direction didn't happen on its own. It happened because the legislature led. You can't say nothing's being done and then ignore the most comprehensive election reform bill Utah has passed in a decade. Well, here's the thing with this. First of all, I don't have to say the legislature is doing anything. But I don't owe you guys. I owe you nothing. Like, really. I don't have to give you credit for anything. But at the end of the day, you're not requiring photo ID for mail ballots at all. So you require them to put their Social Security driver's license number. And what I have not been able to locate, and so if someone's listening and you know the answer to this, I'd love to hear it. But in HB 300, it's not clear to me that the clerk's office actually has to verify that the last four of the ID number that you write on your ballot is accurate. So, and this is what concerns me. When I went to, Mr. Producer said, let's stop mail-in ballots, then we can claim to be a red state. And I agreed. My view, as I think people know, is mail-in ballots should only be for people who are deployed so they can't be here, so military service, missionaries. And that's probably about it. Everybody else should vote in person. And but what I haven't been able to find is just something in HB 300 that says once they require you to write that ID number, that they have to verify that it's accurate. And so I went and I poll watched in Pennsylvania on election night for the RNC. And what was interesting in Pennsylvania is that for mail ballots, they require you to sign the envelope, but they don't do signature verification. All they do is when they're going through these envelopes, they just make sure it's been signed. So it could be signed by anybody because they're not actually checking to make sure that that signature matches a signature they have on file for that voter. Now, I don't actually think I don't think signatures is a reliable form of ID, but not checking it at all is worse than what we do, which is we actually do some sort of a check. Let's say now you're requiring people to write the last four of their ID numbers. If you're not actually checking to make sure those numbers are accurate, then it's a meaningless test, meaning that it means anyone could write the last four on there and it wouldn't. And now actually you're not checking if what we're doing is we're saying you're going to check you have to write these last four and you have to sign it, but we're not going to check the signature verification because of this. I guess I'm not fully clear on the law. Let me just put it that way. I looked at it this morning and then I couldn't wrap my head around whether it requires that those last four of your ID number be accurate. If it does not, then it's a totally pointless. It's a pointless reform. And honestly, the actual answer to this is that you should be required to show your photo ID to submit your mail ballot. One of the things I had suggested before is that the way you could do that, you can still mail out mail ballots and then just require that people have to come in to turn them in and they can't submit them through the mail. So that means that you'd have to take them to an in-person voting place and show your ID and then give them the ballot. Or the other one is at the ballot drop boxes, you would have someone standing there and you would check people in as they come through and check their IDs and then allow them to put their mail ballots into the ballot drop box. That is a much more secure system. That's one that makes sense. And the reason you want photo ID is that you want to be able to look at the photo, look at the person, make sure it's the right person, and that's how you fix this problem. But for some reason in Utah, people think that this mail system, this 100% mail system, is actually a very secure system. It was when I ran for clerk, it was one of the most bizarre things that people would tell me. We have a totally secure system, Goud. Everybody that works for the government in Utah is trustworthy and they're amazing. and they're all honest. And I was just like, ooh, Lord, have mercy. I cannot. This is very difficult to deal with because, like I said, I grew up in Illinois where, just recently, I think last week we talked about this. The Democrat Speaker of the House just went to jail. So you can add that to the list of elected officials in Illinois who go to jail because they commit crimes. It'll never happen in Utah because I think here people are very forgiving of criminal activity by their elected officials because they have told themselves that they're all honest and good people and that they won't commit crimes. Even though I think generally the evidence is the opposite. Okay, so let me see here. Anyway, I think that's something that we need to talk more about and play out. I was hoping that Tracy was going to call and talk about this, but maybe she wasn't able to. And I will continue to try to get some of the steak dinner Republicans to come on to the show. So hopefully then maybe I'll ask Rochelle if she'll come on and talk about it because like I said, I want the Republican Party to win in Salt Lake County. Mr. Producer, I just sent you a link if you want to tee that up to play it. But what I don't see happening is that we're going to have success if we're not able to unite the party. And I don't think you unite the party by just telling people to shut up and move on from an issue. I think you unite the party by actually addressing the issue, trying to figure out what happened, wherever that leads you. Like I said, I think that based on what I've seen, it will lead to the conclusion that Governor Cox did not have the signatures to be able to be put on that GOP primary ballot. But if it didn't lead to that, that's fine. Let's see the evidence. Let's see where this leads. And then let's deal with the ramifications of that. Because if it shows that there was cheating and they got on the ballot, even though they didn't have the signatures, I think that's actually a great reason to completely repeal SB 54. I don't see because it shows the system doesn't work. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the elected officials aren't willing to dig into this because it'll actually take away their ability to circumvent the convention process. That will be the end result. So anyway, I guess let's see where that goes. You got that ready, Mr. Producer? It's a good one. Let's see. I got a little video I want to show you guys. Oh, okay. He said it's spinning. Okay. So anyway, like I said, we'll talk more about steak dinner Republicans as we keep going in the future here. Okay, I want to finish my little talk about. So here. Oh, do we have it?
No, but I just want to add a little thing here because I'm from California. I'm a refugee, and I came here and I registered to vote. I got my ballot in the mail, and I'm going, wait a minute, I didn't ask for an absentee ballot. What is this? And then I found out everything here is done by mail, and I go, well, what? Wait, no, I don't trust the mail. And people go, oh, conspiracy theorists, you don't trust the mail? And I go, okay, well, I just got paid and I owe you $1,000. I'm going to put $1,000 cash in an envelope and mail it to you. And immediately they go, oh, wait. No, I'll come pick up my cash. I'm going, well, what? Don't you trust the mail? No. So, it's a bad way to do things by mail. It really is.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't trust it either.
In California, we actually went and showed our ID, and people go, oh, well, that takes too much time. And I'm going, yeah, I want this to be something that's a little difficult to do, because then you'll get the people who really want to vote to vote. This way, anybody can vote. Dead people vote here. In my mailbox, I get ballots from other people who lived here before. And I go, maybe I should vote twice. Oh, you didn't hear me say that because that's felony. Okay.
No, totally. I hear about those stories all the time. Like a family member dies and then people still get ballots, or their kid has moved out and they're still getting ballots at their home. And so I don't actually think the system is as secure as we've been told it is. I wish more people would understand that. I don't know if we're there yet. Okay, here's while we get that video here, I want to go back to my earlier story here that I was telling you guys about, which is
the internet has been screwy today. So your video's up. I'm going to see if I can play it. So
okay, let's see.
Go ahead with the other.
Go ahead and play it.
Let's see what happens.
Okay. Oh no! He disappeared. I think maybe his internet dropped again. Okay, well, hopefully he'll call back. Here we go. Let me. This is the thing I want to share with you guys. So I've talked a lot about the trans issue on this show. One of my goals in life is to help eradicate the trans agenda from our society. Oh, here we go. We got it. Okay. You got it?
In 1 week, I have seen in my city, black man power wash.
Let's see if this plays. I really want people to hear it, but
Parking lots. Black men doing roofing work. Black men doing lawn services around businesses in my city. Things are starting to look like the old days again. Black Man Thoughts 2.0, and I'm out. Peace.
Okay.
In 1 week, I have seen in my city.
That's all we had, Mr. Producer.
Black man power washing parking lot.
Okay.
Sorry, it wasn't coming through very good, but I think you got the picture.
Yeah, I want people to understand this. So this is why Trump's mass deportation agenda is actually so important. I used to live in Northern Virginia, and I remember people told me that before illegal aliens showed up, the lawn service companies and the various types of home services were actually run by Black people, and that they were driven out of business by illegal aliens. And so I really love that we're seeing kind of the impact of the mass deportation so quickly, right? The people that were hurt the most were working class Americans. And it's not just Black Americans, it's working class Americans of all races. And they will be the ones to benefit the most by getting these people out of here. So when you hear these professionals, and that's typically who it is, it's professionals pushing the idea that we should have open borders. I'll just say, like in Utah, you've got the Candace Perucci. She'll claim she's anti-open borders, but just go drive through her district and you'll see that she is not anti-open borders. And you'll hear lots of lawyers who are all pro open borders because they're in a protected industry where nobody else, you can't just go and become a lawyer. You have to pass a bar. You have to be here legally to do so, et cetera, et cetera. But the biggest beneficiary of these programs by Trump to get these illegal aliens out of our country, and I'll just be honest, I don't care how long you've been here, you need to GTFO, like get out. Oh, look at, actually, Mr. Producer says, when I was a youngster in LA, all the gardeners and landscapers were Japanese. It changed in the blink of an eye. Okay, and that makes sense to me because, the reason in Northern Virginia it was primarily Black is that tended to be more your working class people because Virginia has a very large Black population. It's kind of a because it was a slave state, but California, I can see Japanese being more frequent for sure. That makes sense. And so anyway, these programs, they help working class people the most. And so we should be pushing harder on mass deportations. We need to get rid of every single illegal alien. I don't care how long you've been here. If you've been here 30 years, you got to go. You took someone else's job. You took an American's job. You stole from our country. You used our services. And so it's, okay, go ahead. You can play it, Mr. Producer. We're going to play it one more time.
In 1 week, I have seen in my city, Black man power washing parking lots. Black men doing roofing work. Black men doing lawn services around businesses in my city. things are starting to look like the old days again. Black Man Thoughts 2.0, and I'm out. Peace.
Okay, that was much clearer. And I think the point is this: from the Republican Party perspective, everything has switched in this. We are now the party of the working class, and we owe it to those working class people to serve them and to implement policies that benefit them. And so that requires, I think, continuing with mass deportations, getting them all out of here. And I think there'll be a combination. Some will have to be through physical, pull them out of here, and then other people will self-deport. We've got to make it more difficult for them to be here. And the result will be this. In that example with the black man, if the Republican Party wants to win the black male vote, get the illegals out of here. Because because really, I'll tell you, like when I saw that video, it kind of brought back some of my thoughts I had years ago about this. And that is that people that are open borders advocates are actually racist. And so when you live in a place like Virginia or live really it's really more in the eastern part of the United States where the biggest minority groups tend to be blacks. You come away with the feeling that, oh, it's racism. So people that are pro open borders typically hate black people, and they don't want them to be able to make a living, to be able to have those jobs like I was talking about, to be able to power wash your driveway and charge you for it, to be able to mow your lawn and charge you for it. And we owe those people everything to try to make it so they can make a living. And that's what I think Trump is doing. So I'm hoping that we'll really begin to see kind of some powerful stuff as this moves forward. And in terms of trying to grow the black vote for Republicans and grow these other the working class vote among minority groups. Because I think among working class whites, we already win. But we've got to grow it among the working class minority groups. So that is the way to do it. That's all I'm going to say. It's like, let's keep it up. Let's keep going. 100%. Mr. Producer says, they're not just racist. They want slave labor. And I think that's accurate. 100% accurate. Sad, but true. And if I get a little emotional sometimes, I apologize. It's just stuff that kind of gets me worked up because this has been something I've been talking about for years. And it's nice to see that we're actually having a president who's out there implementing it. Oh, totally. He also says Republicans are part of it 100%, especially in Utah. We are a pro open borders state, and the Republicans in elected office fully support open borders. So you should not have any qualms that you think the Republicans here are trying to protect your children, your kids that want to be able to do construction work, build homes, wash driveways, do lawn work, whatever those services are that they can do. The Republicans are okay with illegal aliens being here. They proved that in this last legislative session when they refused to change the law about who has to use E-Verify. So in Utah, only employers with 150 or more employees have to use E-Verify. They were trying to reduce it back to 15, which is what it was until I think 2020. And they were unable to do it because there's so many Republicans in our legislature that support open borders. Anyway, we are at time for today. Maybe I'll get back to my Andrew Sullivan article in a future episode, but you should go check it out. It's at the New York Times. He did a great job of kind of summarizing how the gay rights movement turned into this radical, ridiculous transgender agenda, garbage. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.